Hey guys, this is Dana, and this is episode number 38 of the Ask a Question show, the show in which you ask a question about any type of narcissistic or otherwise abusive or toxic relationship or situation, and I, along with the rest of the community here, will do our very best to help answer it. Our goal is to give you the feedback and the support that you need so that you can move forward in getting the clarity, the closure, and the healing that you so deserve. And so today's question comes from SL, and SL asks, Dear Dana, what do you do with the flying monkeys that these people have around them that will put you down and defend the narcissist when you try to distance yourself? They will use the arguments you gave to make you feel bad for wanting to be free of the chaos. They'll say stuff like, you shouldn't be so hard on them because nobody's perfect. Or they'll try to shame you and make you feel guilty with stuff like, oh, so you think you're better than them? You really need to learn how to have some compassion. Basically, what should you do about the flying monkeys who are rationalizing these things for you and trying to shove it down your throat when you don't want to be a part of it anymore? So, okay, fantastic question. And here's kind of my thought on it. So, I came up with a term, a concept really, about a week or so ago. And the concept has to do with what I call thought holes. And this has everything to do with flying monkeys. So, I'll explain here in a bit. So thought holes are to our thinking like potholes are to our vehicle. And so for example, with a pothole, when you're driving along in your vehicle, and if you hit maybe like a minor pothole, it'll kind of jolt you awake, and you might spill your coffee a little bit, but you go along your merry way. If it's a major one, it can really derail you. You can wind up in a ditch somewhere, right? A thought hole is very much the same way. So if we hit a minor one, it can cause us anxiety, frustration, anger, hurt, those kinds of things. If we hit a major one, it can cause, suicidal thinking, major depression, major anxiety. It can even cause us to get back into situations where we're being used or abused. And again, winding up in that ditch that is our life. And so I really believe that we all have thought holes, but the cool thing is thought holes are a lot like potholes in that once you know that they're there, you can easily swerve around them and you just don't even think twice about it. You don't fall into them anymore. And then kind of the added cool thing too is once you know that they're there, then you can go tell other people and kind of say, hey, and educate them and say, hey, you know what? Yeah, there's this terrible pothole in the corner of Main and Jackson, and now they can watch out for it. Thought holes are very much the same way. And I think you'll find that once you're able to fill them in, then you help yourself and you're able to help other people with this too. Because I really feel like the vast majority of people out there are their lives are in a ditch in large part due to these thought holes. And this concept, I really feel is just absolutely, for me, it's been a game changer. And I've only been kind of toying with it for the past week or so. So let me go through them one at a time. First one is first thought hole. Well, who are you to judge? Second one, well, no one's perfect. Third one, we need to treat others like we would want to be treated. The fourth one, forgive and forget. Now, okay, on the surface, all of these thought holes seem like really, they don't seem destructive at all, right? In fact, they seem like really fantastic guiding principles for our life. That's what makes them so dangerous and so destructive. And what we're missing here is the context. And once we get the context, then they really can become less like thought holes and more like guiding principles of our life. So again, let me go through them one at a time here. So the first one, well, who are you to judge? Well, the answer is, I am the one that is responsible for my life. And it is, if you break that word apart, responsible to response-able, in order for me to be able to respond effectively in my life, I have to use some sort of degree of judgment. Now, I prefer the term discernment over judgment because judgment tends to keep people stuck in that thought hole. And by judgment, I'm talking about more like rigid, concrete words, good, bad, right, wrong. And again, people tend to fall into cognitive dissonance, which is a big part of these thought holes. And then they start getting in debates about, oh, well, it was because they start justifying behavior. It's because of a person's childhood or an addiction or kind of what have you. But really, none of that is it really matters. It really doesn't. It's more of kind of what is right now. And that is that you need to have the ability to use discernment and figure out how to best move forward in your life. And so I find it helpful to look at thoughts and actions of ourselves and others in three simple ways. It's either empowering, enabling, or disempowering. And so my whole goal now is to move forward in a way where I'm empowering myself and ideally empowering other people, kind of that whole win-win. But if I'm taking actions or having thoughts that's empowering myself, but it's enabling or disempowering other people, then it's a sign to me that I need to change my approach in something. At the same time, if I'm with somebody and their actions towards me are disempowering or enabling, then I need to do whatever I need to do to make sure that myself is empowered, that I stay empowered. So, and of course, too, if a person is trying to disempower you to the point where your safety and sanity is at risk, then you need to really do whatever you need to do to keep yourself empowered, because possibly trying to empower them, it might not be possible. And so you need to watch out for yourself first. It's kind of the whole thing, like on an airplane, when the oxygen masks fall down and they say to put the mask on yourself first before you put it on the person sitting next to you. That's very true. You can't save somebody. You can't, it's very disempowering, right? To sink ourselves to save somebody else. So I think that's kind of maybe a helpful way to look at that. So let's see, where are we? Second one. No one is perfect. Yes, this is true. No one is perfect. However, that does not make cheating and lying and stealing and manipulating and abusing okay. And so, again, examining how your new course of action through what is the most empowering thing for me to do, and ideally what is the most empowering thing for this other person, but the other person has to be willing to have accountability for their actions and accountability and responsibility. And if they don't have that, then all you can do is all you can do, because they're not willing to own up to their part in it. So, and you'll see too, the different contexts of the different thought holes, they're all interwoven. So it's kind of one feeds off the other, which makes it very simple as far as having, really healthy guiding principles to our lives. So the third one, treat others like we would want to be treated. Totally valid with context. And the context is, if I want to be treated, I want to treat myself and others in a very empowering way. And for me, that means treating others with kindness, compassion, and dignity. And not just others, but for me, personally, it's all living creatures. So if I need to act accordingly to do that. And here's kind of the thing. So when you're dealing, especially with like flying monkeys or really difficult people, it's really hard to do this. But I will tell you, you will feel better because you're not going to get so caught up in that anger and the rage of falling into their potholes or getting kind of roped into these conversations, or you're not going to be meeting their anger with your anger. And you're going to be taking the road of compassion, kindness, and dignity. And there's kind of an added benefit to that, is they're not going to expect that. And so, of course, too, the highly manipulative person of kind of whatever shade that you're dealing with, if they're telling other people, they're probably telling them all kinds of things in order to turn them into flying monkeys, right? So if you're approaching them in a very grounded, level-headed, reasonable way, it's very disarming to them because it doesn't compute. Because what they've probably heard from the manipulative person is how opposite of that you are, right? Like how crazy and dangerous and destructive and all these terrible things that are most likely not true. So if you meet them with this level of kindness, compassion, and dignity, then it's going to make them kind of question, well, wait a minute, what's really going on here? And of course, too, when you do meet them at that level, and you're not concerned about judgment, but you're more focused on discernment, then you can have that conversation about, you know what, me and my ex, or me and this other person, our relationship, it was very disempowering, and I'm at a different place in my life, and I really wish them, compassion and kindness and dignity, and however you want to phrase that. But I need to kind of move forward, and, our dynamic is very disempowering. So I need to move forward and empower myself. And they may or may not understand that. You might be able to help them kind of fill in these potholes, because if they do come to you and say, oh, well, you need to have compassion for this other person, then I would respond to that with, well, I also need to have compassion for myself. and explain the whole oxygen mask in a plane analogy and say, I can see that maybe me not talking to them seems like it's a lack of compassion for them, but it's not. It's our relationship, our dynamic is very toxic. It's very disempowering. This is actually probably one of the more compassionate things that I can do, is to not have contact with this person. And so I really need to do what I need to do in order to stay healthy. And I'm sure, and I would just say, and I'm sure that you can understand that, and kind of put it back on them. So, the last one is forgive and forget. So again, I hear this one a lot, especially when it has to do with families. People have this idea that, DNA trumps all, and it really doesn't. It's has everything to do with actions and the way we treat each other, right? With the compassion, dignity, and kindness, more so than DNA. But again, I see this all the time. So here's the qualifier, the context for the forgive and forget. In order for forgiveness to be truly possible, a person, the wrongdoer, the person who has had this, done this injustice of some kind, has to have an appropriate level of like responsibility and accountability for their actions. They need to fully own up to it. And then they need to be taking massive, consistent action in the direction of repairing the relationship that they've damaged. If those two things aren't possible, then it would be very disempowering to yourself, and show yourself a lack of compassion to allow this person to continue in your life. You're letting that bull back into the china shop, so to speak. So, but what you can do, and here's kind of this other strange thing that society has. It's like this belief of, well, we either stay really angry and bitter, or we forgive a person who's not truly remorseful. Well, to me, that's a very lose-lose type situation. I wouldn't want to do either one of those things because they're both very disempowering. So there is a middle ground there. And I think it starts with us making the decision, again, to take the most empowering thoughts and actions possible at all times, which means at a minimum to say, I'm not going to let whatever happened to me in my life destroy my life. I'm not going to give it that power, or that ability to do that. And I'm now going to take whatever did happen to me and I'm going to use it to the best of my ability to empower myself and ideally empower other people. And I think you'll find that once you start kind of giving your pain a purpose like that, that you really do start to heal, because it gives it, it just gives it a purpose. It gives it a direction. You can take that energy and put it into things that are very empowering. And so a lot of that and really forgiveness too, all starts with acceptance. And it's acceptance of what actually happened, not making it better than it is, not making it worse than it is, but really accepting what truly happened. And, dealing with what is, and then focusing too and acknowledging the feelings that you truly sincerely do have. And once you get to that level of acceptance, then it's easier to move forward with kind of that empowering action of whatever that looks like to you. So that's what I have for you guys. I will be really curious to know your thoughts about things. And as always, any questions, comments, concerns, frustrations, ideas, insights, you need some support, you have some feedback, you just want to say hi, the best place to get a hold of me and many, many other people is in my support group. I will link to that down below in the comments area, or not the comments, the description area. And as always, lots of love to you guys. You are not alone. You are not crazy, and you really can move forward and heal from this. So take care, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.